no one is remembered for what they only plan to do. We are all rough drafts of the person that we are becoming. I used to be afraid at failing at something that really mattered to me, but now I am more afraid at succeeding at something that does not matter. A couple of Bob Goff quotes to get us started today, and I think they perfectly encompass the guest that is joining us. Uganda want to stick around for this one. Welcome back to MB2 Underground. I'm Sarah Kiefer.
And I'm JT. Hey, Sarah.
You
Sorry.
good?
Yes. I was about to cough.
We're just getting started. I thought you were going to vomit.
No,
Welcome.
hey, I love that intro.
Thank you.
Are you a big Bob Goff?
No, I
fan?
almost called him Bob Ross a few times, but I know our guest is, so I
Yep.
tried to do a little bit of research.
Yep. I actually, he's written a bunch of books, clearly, but I've not read them, but my wife is a huge fan.
Really?
Of Bob Goff. Yeah.
Shout out,
yeah.
Stephanie. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I think your intro was great. I know that Bob Goff is a friend and an inspiration for our guest today. Our guest has also worn many hats throughout his career. He's been a pastor. He's been a fundraiser. They've gotten into, I'll say, construction and humanitarian work and serving underserved populations. So it is with great pleasure that I get to introduce Mr. Scott Peterson of OneWorld Health today. Welcome, Scott.
Hey, thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it. Glad to be here. It's nice to meet the two of you.
Thanks for joining. I know that this is like a weird side thing, but when you said it is my pleasure, did anybody else think of Bruce Almighty?
Nope.
He's like, pleasure. Okay, never mind.
It's been a while since I've seen Bruce Almighty.
Okay, add it to your list.
Yeah. So, Scott, as we were prepping today,
He means last week. We've been prepped for a very long time.
Well,
Yeah.
we do a ton of prep work. There's a lot about OneWorld Health that I want to get into, but before we do that, I noticed that you CrossFit.
Yep.
I also noticed that you like doing home projects. My wife and I talk, and I used to do CrossFit, and I said, hey, I work out to be strong, to be useful.
Yeah.
And so my wife likes for me to be useful around the house, although it takes me a ton of time to do those projects. So as someone who likes to do projects around the house, what's maybe the most satisfying thing you've done, and how long do those projects normally take?
What's your turnaround time?
My turnaround time can be a little while,
Well,
unfortunately.
Between when you're like, this is the project that we're going to do, and starting it.
Yeah, typically it's on how much pressure my wife puts on me, if I'm being honest.
Amen.
I like the realism.
Yeah. So probably the two big projects we've done that I enjoyed the most, we had a big home just outside of Columbus, Ohio that I redid, put hardwood floors in throughout the home, which was a blast. And then the next place we got was a little condo, and in the little condo I ended up just doing building out the basement so that it was rooms. So that was a lot of fun. Both of those I enjoyed.
Those are really big projects. That's not like, I put a shelf up.
No. It takes a little bit of time and a lot of work, but it's always fun once you get it done. I'm the guy my whole response is I'm not paying someone to do what I can do myself.
Yes. My fiance is the same way.
So I like mowing the lawn, even though I don't do it anymore. I liked mowing the lawn because it was something I knew I could do.
Yep.
And, call it an hour and a half later, you had the satisfaction of
Yeah,
being
you can
able
look
to
at it
work.
and say, see
Yep.
what I did?
Yep. But, man, I'm more of I hang a shelf or I put a mirror up kind of guy,
I changed a few
unfortunately.
light fixtures. That was like my big proud moment as a single woman in the house I just bought. I was like, I could change this.
But have you been shocked?
Yeah.
If you're doing electricity at all, you've been shocked
3 or
more
4
than once.
times, yeah.
My wife always loves the call. Every once in a while, I've replaced some outlets, and I'll call her if she's not home, and I'll say, hey, I'm going to put you on speaker. If I stop talking, you need to call somebody to come check on me. And she's like, what are you doing? But
Where do you think that comes from? The I want to figure this out for myself. I want to stay active. I want to stay busy.
My father did all those projects himself, and so he would drag me and make me do it all. He changed transmissions on a truck, all of it, and so it'd be like, I'm going to do it. I'm like, okay, I'll help you.
Oh my gosh, you were like dad's little helper.
You didn't have any choice but to help.
Yeah.
At least hold the flashlight or whatever it was.
That's amazing.
that's very, very
And I have
cool.
done the thing. So I've done the breakers on the house. So I'll change out breakers, and I'll bring the boys out with me, one of them, and I'll say, okay, hold this broom. And if for some reason that's not off and it shocks me, I need you to hit me really hard with the broom so that I'll
Why?
let go, because you'll just kind of latch on and hold on.
Oh, so smacking you with the broom would make you let go.
Would make me break would break my hold of the electrical. So
Listeners.
And it wouldn't pass through.
Piece of advice: always carry a broom.
yeah,
Especially
you're going
if
to do
you're
that.
Changing breakers. Yeah, no kidding. Oh, man. So let's talk now kind of about OneWorld Health.
Sure.
To give the listeners, for those that are not aware, and really, honestly, for me and Sarah, just give us the layperson's version of what is OneWorld Health?
So OneWorld Health is 15 years old. We build
You've got yourself a teenager.
Yeah, right. That's a good way to describe it. We build operationally self-sustaining hospitals and clinics in East Africa and Central America. We can have them built, staffed, and self-sustaining in 18 to 24 months.
Wow.
It is the self-sustaining component that makes us completely different. As far as we know, now this may not be completely accurate, but as far as we know, we are the largest self-sustaining hospital system in East Africa or Central America.
I just got a question from our listeners. Define self-sustaining.
So once the clinic or hospital starts to operate, we don't have to completely come back to donors to help us keep it moving.
Gotcha.
So it works in a 3-step model.
Okay.
The first step of it is that donors, foundations, churches, whatever it might be, help us build the hospital or clinic,
Okay.
help us start programs, expand it, whatever it is that we need. That's the first leg of the stool. The second leg of it is that, or the second step of the model is that the patients pay something in. It's a very small fee, but it's enough to keep the place operationally self-sustaining.
Okay.
So a couple examples in that would be, or a couple things that are important. We believe very much so that it's important for people to pay something in. It allows them to keep their dignity. Mm-hmm. It also gives them skin in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they have a sense that that's our clinic or that's our hospital.
They're invested.
Yeah, but a couple of things that are really important kind of in that from a statistical standpoint. Here in the States, people who, or within the hospital systems within the States, people who pay their bills in full is somewhere between 55 and 65%. For us, it is 98 to 99% in
Wow.
East Africa or Central
That's
America.
amazing.
But one other statistic that's really interesting is that a great example here in the States, if a young lady needs to have a C-section with a 2-night stay in the hospital and she doesn't have insurance, it's typically somewhere between $55,000 and $75,000. Yeah, a lot of money. For us in Uganda, we can build it, or we can do that for $100. Now, they don't have their own suite, they don't have cable, they don't have their own personal private bathroom, but mommy and the baby are safe.
These are
Very
some
safe.
pretty incredible medical facilities. So it's not like primary care exclusively.
It's not just primary care exclusively.
You mentioned
no.
something about a NICU earlier.
Yeah, so in Uganda, we have a hospital with dental clinic, with diagnostic center, x-ray, everything, with 2 surgery centers, ambulance, and a NICU. We are the only NICU within a 5.5-hour radius serving 3 million people.
Man.
It's us, no one else.
What was the origin of, like how did you said you started 15 years ago?
Tell us the birthing story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sarah, by the way, if you don't pick
She's
up on
very
this,
quick.
she's quick with the pun for
Yeah,
sure.
I like these. This is awesome.
Yes.
So we got started 15 years ago with a ER doc who was going over to Uganda to serve right after the Civil War. He would go, he would
That's
serve
the
for,
Ugandan Civil War for
Yeah.
everybody who's
yeah,
confused.
just in case.
Just me? Nope. Got it. Okay.
So he would serve for a week, 10 days, whatever it is. He would see hundreds of people, but like for instance, he would see the mom who had hypertension because she had 6 kids and having to care for the family while dad's at work. He'd see dad who's working in the sugarcane fields and chewing on sugarcane all the time, so he had diabetes. And he would provide them with hypertension medicine, insulin, all the stuff that they would need for 30 to 60 days. And then he would leave, but he wouldn't be back for another year. And so he would
wow.
always say, hey, The problem is not only are they sick, but now they know they're sick, and
Yeah.
they also know they can't get the medications, they can't get the things that they need to take care of their
Like
sickness.
dangling the carrot.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
he started to say there's got to be a better way to do this than how we typically do it.
You got to do something different.
Yeah, especially within the States.
I'm going to have a few more. I'm sorry. Keep
She's
going.
great.
yep,
So
yep,
this is
yep.
awesome.
I couldn't come up with any for Honduras, so this is the only one I've got.
Keep them rolling, Sarah. Keep them.
So he and another friend developed the model, and then really literally at Chick-fil-A on a couple of napkins wrote out the model, and then convinced a third friend who's our executive director to go with his wife and dig it out. And so we've been operating ever since. The third leg of them, or the third piece of the model, is that we use all local people.
Oh,
That's
cool.
what I think is so incredible. You said that OneWorld Health has over 350 employees, but only 15 of them are American.
Yeah, only 13 of us are Americans.
Wow, that's insane.
So it's crazy. So if you're seeing a physician or a nurse there, it's always Ugandan, it's always Honduran, it's always Nicaraguan.
So you're not just supporting the community, you're supporting, jobs in the community
we're
too.
building out the economic viability at the same time that we're bringing health and wholeness to the
was
community.
a much
We
better way to
purchase as much as we possibly can in country. We do it all that way. If we're building, the Ugandans build it, the Nicaraguans build it, the Hondurans build it. If we're digging a well, whatever it is, we want to use them.
That's amazing. And that's part of
So-
that self-sustaining.
That's part of what makes it self-sustaining, a big part of it.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
That is awesome.
How did you get involved?
So I served for 20 plus years as a pastor,
Wow.
and then all over the country, everywhere from Houston, Portland, Nashville, Kansas City, San Diego, and then had a friend who had been recruited to be a president of a small liberal arts Christian university and called and said, hey, I need some help. When we were living in San Diego, any chance you'd come and help us? And so they were just outside of Columbus, Ohio, promised to pay for my doctoral degree in full and paid for my kids' tuition in college. So I was like, yeah, sure, we can go.
Yeah, I think that's a good ROI.
So we went, and I got my doctoral degree. My boys got their degrees, and
Great.
then so I did 10 years in higher education. When I finished up my degree and the boys finished up school, my wife just said, I want to go home, which was Oklahoma City.
Yeah, it
So
sounds like you'd been all over at this
We've been
point.
everywhere, yeah.
Like, the least we can do is go home.
So that's what I said. After 25 years of marriage, the least I can do is get you home. So we got her home. And I went to work initially for a healthcare system in Oklahoma and had been working for them for a couple of years when OneWorld Health, through a headhunter, the headhunter and I had a mutual friend. And so the mutual friend told the headhunter, hey, I've got a friend you ought to call. He'd be a good fit. So the guy called and said, hey, any chance you'd talk to us? I said, well, sure, I'll talk to anybody, even about mowing the yard. If it's the right price, I'll talk about it. You bet. So we talked, and I came home and told my wife and said, hey, I really don't have a good reason to tell these guys no. They're doing it better than anybody I've ever seen. So we jumped in and started doing it. They initially wanted me to move to Charleston, and I told them, I said, I can't do that. If I move to Charleston, I'll be moving alone and
Yeah.
divorced, and that won't be good for you or
Yes.
me.
Yeah.
So I just traveled all the time for them. Some portion of about 40 to 42 weeks of a year, I'm on the road.
Wow.
So
And your title is VP of Development?
Yep.
What does that entail for OneWorld Health?
primarily fundraising.
Yeah.
So when I show up, I'm looking for money.
Okay.
And you came here?
Yeah, I came here.
I took as part of my degree in college, I took a couple of nonprofit courses, and one was
yeah.
about grant writing.
cool.
And my mom's done nonprofit work for a very long time, and I know what goes into fundraising to a very small extent, and it's incredible work. It's hard, and it's labor intensive, but it's got to feel really rewarding.
It's a lot of fun. I always tell people it's a great gig if you don't mind people saying no. And
Like
if you
sales.
like people, yeah.
Yeah.
If you like people and you enjoy meeting people and just connecting with folks, it's a lot of fun. And you're like, hey, I don't mind. I don't take no personal, then that's fine.
I've got to imagine, too, what's really rewarding, not only for you, but the donors, is what you all are able to present after the fact to say, hey, here's your dollars at work, and this is the impact that it's had. Like, that's got to be a really, really fulfilling and satisfying, kind of like mowing the yard, right?
No, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a big part of it where I always tell people it's great people doing great things. They really do good work, so it's really easy to invest in. The thing that makes ours a little unique, I think sometimes, is because it's self-sustaining and because the manner in which we do it, it's easy for people to say, hey, I'd like to be a part of that.
Yeah.
So our donors are great people and just people that really believe in what we're doing, and we love working with them and they love working with us. It's a lot of fun. Good people.
Since we've talked a lot about OneWorld and just donors, can you give us a plug on the listeners that are out there that might want to get involved? Is there a way that they can get involved in OneWorld Health?
Yeah, sure. Probably the easiest thing to do is to go to oneworldhealth.com.
We can link that.
Yeah, and that's our website. It's got information about our trips. It's got information about who we are and how the whole program works and how the model works. It also has information about how people can give.
That's
Cool.
awesome.
Very
But
cool.
would love to have them involved with us.
What's something that you guys are working on that you're excited about?
Probably the biggest one that we're working on right now for me is in Uganda. There's a little community about an hour and a half north of Masindi.
Where you
Which-
originally started?
Yep, Masindi is in the northwest quadrant of Uganda. If you go north in Masindi, up near the South Sudanese and the Congo border, there's a little town called Bouali. When I arrived in Bouali in 2019, had just been with the organization maybe a couple of weeks and had gone to Bouali with some donors. You could stand on the patio of the clinic that we had just opened a few months before, and all in front of us in the horizon on the north side was refugee tents. Wow. Over 100,000 refugees from Sudan and Congo had streamed across the border, and they were all in Bouali. And so Uganda has a very different approach to refugees. They tend to just lower the border and say, hey, there's a crisis in your country, whether it's medical, whether it's, political,
Right.
food, whatever it is. Y'all come on across. We've got lots of room. We'll figure it out. We don't know what we'll do, but we'll figure it out. When I was back there in 2023, they had all those tents were gone, and all the Sudanese and Congolese had figured out how to live very peacefully and very easily with the Ugandans, and all the tents were gone and homes were built.
Oh, that's amazing.
And so that little
That's such a cool
community has
story.
exploded. So we are in the process of, in the next couple of years, building a surgery center, a dental clinic, and a diagnostic center with x-ray, and a guest housing for visiting surgeons and nurses in that community.
Wow.
And we'll have a full hospital there within the next few years.
How often are you guys cycling, like folks coming from America to serve? Like how often are Americans there working?
We'll do about 40 to 45 trips a year.
Okay.
And typically in those trips, we'll take some surgeons or some physicians, some dental folks. We always end up taking a PharmD, a pharmacist,
Oh, yeah.
because you got to make sure you
Sure.
give them the right medications.
Right.
And we'll take a few nurses, and then we'll mix them with the people that we already have on the ground. And we will go somewhere between 45 minutes to an hour and a half away from one of our clinics or one of our hospitals and serve in some community that doesn't have any access at all. When you arrive on site, there, especially in Uganda, there will be 200 to 300 people sitting there just waiting in line. And most of them, if not all of them, have been there all night waiting for us just to show up.
That's
So we'll
incredible.
serve all day. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Really a neat opportunity.
Where do you think you've always had this like servant leadership mentality, or do you have a place you can kind of attribute it to?
No, I think that's part of both where credit to my parents. That's who my parents were. And even as a pastor, and then in my education, my doctoral degree is organizational leadership with a focus in wisdom and servant leadership.
Wow.
That's
So,
cool.
Makes sense that you ended up where you did.
Yeah, so it's pretty easy, kind of a part of who I am.
Yeah.
Well, to call back Sarah's intro to Bob Goff, tell us a little about. Tell us a little bit about your relationship with Bob. Like, how did you guys meet, and what does that look like, and how has he impacted kind of your career path or your journey?
Yeah, so we met Bob, what would be 20 years ago, living in San Diego. He was working as a lawyer. That was his initial trade.
Interesting.
And Bob was going into India initially before Africa and Uganda. He was going into India to rescue girls out of the sex slave trade
Wow.
as a lawyer. And I was pastoring a church in San Diego, a growing church, a nice little community church, wonderful people, and had a young lady who was in the church who was a college student, and she was a pre-law student, and Bob was teaching pre-law at one of the local universities. And so she came in one day and said, "Hey, Pastor Scott, I think you need to meet my pre-law prof." And I was like, "Sure." She said, "He's wonderful. He'd be a great speaker." I'm like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." I mean, people were always coming through
Sure.
and saying,
Yep.
"You need to let so-and-so speak." And that was always kind of a 50-50 shot if it was going to be good or not. So anyhow, I had
Spoiler
a
alert.
meeting one Wednesday night, a financial meeting with some guys and gals in the church. And so I had him meet with some other people in the church. And after they met, he left. And the guy who was running the meeting stuck his head in my meeting and said, "Hey, you've got to get this guy in ASAP. He's amazing." So we had Bob in and just had Bob in multiple times at the church. He was incredible. Just got to know him through that initial invite. And then because when I went to the university, I went initially to be the chaplain. So we kept having him come up each year and speak to college students. So Katie and I, my wife, just started spending lots of time with Bob, hanging out, eating dinner, lunch, dinner, everything, hearing him speak and all the other stuff. But Bob is absolutely the most encouraging human you will ever meet in your life.
I just read his quotes and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I need
he's
to
hitting.
print these and put them on my mirror in the morning.
Yeah, no, he's the kind of guy that can convince you that you can do anything and will constantly tell you, you can do more, you can do great. You're the best person in the world. You're great at whatever you do. We still talk to him. I use him as a reference for everything. If I'm going to apply for a job, he's the guy that's on the reference list every time because he thinks I'm wonderful, even if no one else does.
Oh my gosh.
But he's just as good as gold, and the very things that you read about him and hear about him are all true. He's just a great guy.
We could use a lot more Bob Goffs, I think, in this world from that encouragement perspective.
Yeah, he's it. He really is the real deal. Great human, great person.
Okay. I'm going to take us off the path a little bit here, but I am sure when I first got the notes for this podcast, the thing that popped into my head, unfortunately, was you have a very famous name.
Oh, yeah.
And I've just realized you were in, I think, San Diego.
Yeah,
which
same
is,
time it was all going on.
Okay.
It was a riot.
So, like, for the sake of the listeners and myself, like, how was the experience of sharing the same name of a very well-known, high-profile,
infamous
murder?
Yeah,
case?
infamous murder, yeah. I spent a lot of time explaining to people that my wife's name wasn't Lacey.
Okay.
Yeah. It was just so funny. I was telling my fiance about this podcast, and he was like, "Why does that name sound familiar?" And I was like, "Because it's two basic white dude names back to back, Scott,
Yeah.
Peter." And when I was reading over the notes, I was like, "Oh," I had to text him and validate him. I was like, "Okay, you're right. You had heard it," because I did make him watch the documentary like 2 weeks ago, so it makes sense.
No, the all-time classic, I had been someplace speaking. I think I was in Florida speaking and was flying home to San Diego. This was right after all of it started going down. And this was before TSA had the fast way through.
Oh, yeah.
And there was some young lady, probably in her late 20s, that I had to show her my driver's ID to. And as I walked up, she looked at it. She said, "I think we know each other." And I said, "No, we don't." And she said, "Yeah, I'm confident we do." I said, "No, I promise you we don't." And she said, "I know your name. I know you." And I said, "We don't know each other." She said, "No, I think we do." I said, "I'm the guy that killed his wife in San Diego. Can I have my ID back?" And she said, "Sure." And she just handed it to me. And I moved through the line. That was it.
Oh, my
It's like you feel like you need a shirt that's like, "I didn't do it.
Yeah.
It wasn't me."
But every time someone saw my ID, they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I know. It's true."
Well, before we wrap up, if any of our listeners were trying to find a way to serve more or have more of a leadership role in their lives and their community, but don't know where to start, what advice would you give them?
So I always tell people the two most important things in leadership to me are 1, kindness, and then 2, wanting, seeing, and believing the best in the other person. So the best leaders, whether it's Bob or whoever you think of, the people that have had the biggest impact in your life are not the leaders who are mean and were just rude and bossy, narcissistic. That's not the person you wanted to follow. Who you really want to follow is the person who makes you believe you can be the best version of yourself and wants the best for you, both in your job and your future and in your home. So if you're not the best version of yourself at home, then you're not the best version of yourself. So I don't need you just to be the best you at my job. I need you to be the best you in your marriage, with your kids, wherever you're at. So I always wanted the best for my people. If it's not in this place, then tell me where you want to be, and I want to help you get to the best place possible.
Man.
Mic drop.
And so, the kindness is a big part of that. I worked for the bosses who weren't kind, and I just decided I would figure out a way to be kind, and I'm going to help you get to the best place you can possibly be. So C.S. Lewis.
Yes.
So he writes a book called Mere Christianity. It's one of my favorite books. In Mere Christianity, C.S. Lewis talks about good, better, and best. He talks about the fact that most of us live in just the good. It's good enough.
Yeah.
This is a good spot. This will work. Yeah. Some of us will move on to the better. I'm better than I was. I'm better than I used to be. I'm better than him. I'm better than her. But what all of us are really called to be is to live into our best, the best version of ourselves. So in the same response, I have the opportunity and the responsibility to help those that follow me and those I engage and encounter to live into their best.
Man.
Thank you for that. I feel like it's got to leave people feeling like they have a good path forward. This has been inspirational for me.
This is one of those things where I needed this today. Like I didn't necessarily know I needed it, but man, I am excited to press forward with my day now. And that's great. Scott, we appreciate you coming on.
Is there anything we missed? Did you
guys are great.
Can I say something weird before we wrap up?
Go for it.
Thank you. I don't know if you've ever been told you have a very nice voice.
Thank you.
I recently started experiencing insomnia for the first time in my life, and I ended up with these like headphone eye mask things and listening to like sleep stories. You should do that on the side. This is what I'm going to listen. I'm going to hear my voice pop up. You have a very calming and relaxing voice. This has been
Thank you.
Very nice. Not saying you'd put me to sleep. I'm just saying, like, okay, you can wrap up.
Yep. There's Sarah's weird.
No, Sarah's great.
I'm just kidding. No, Scott, seriously, thanks for coming on. This has been great. And
you've got to come back.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my last one.
Very inspirational. MB2 Undergrounders, if you want more information on OneWorld Health, Scott, correct me if I get this wrong, go to www.oneworldhealth.com.
I think it's com.
Yep, .com.
Or Google. I'm sure will take you to the right place.
Scott, thanks again for coming. And MB2 Undergrounders, we have reached the conclusion of our most recent episode. We'll see you guys next time.
See ya.
Thanks for letting me be part of it.